Welcome to episode 23 of the Jungle Podcast, our Michael Jordan episode. I'm your host, John. You know Jeff as well. Jeff, welcome back for another podcast.
What's up, buddy? Number 23. Looking forward to it. Why don't you tell everybody how they can find us?
If it's your first time listening, you can find us on Twitter at The Jungle Pod. You can find us on any listening platform as The Jungle Podcast. And you can find us on YouTube as The Jungle Podcast. Jeff and I were just discussing, we've seen some spikes, some numbers that don't gel with the rest of our episodes. Episode 18, I think it is, has been caught. It's gone viral. We've got 250 views, ladies and gentlemen.
255 to be exact.
255.
Yep.
Don't know where that's coming from, but if anyone has any inkling, we'd really like to find out, because it seems about the same as the rest of these that are getting 10. So
yeah, we'll try to do some market research and find out what it was about that one to find out. But that was a good one. It was the wide receivers ones from 2000, 2010. So I don't know. Maybe there was a debate about that on somewhere that people found it. But we appreciate the views on that, and we want to we want to know what spiked that. So also, would you like to mention the Jungle Podcast store?
Absolutely. Thank you. We had our first purchase on the store.
First purchase.
A loyal listener and previous guest appearance, Zach, purchased a Jungle Podcast. I believe it was the
tank top.
Sleeveless. Sorry?
Tank top. A tank top.
Tank top. That's the term.
Yeah.
Purchased the tank top. Haven't seen Zach in it yet, but can't wait to see him wearing the merch. If anyone else wants some Jungle Podcast merch, you can find it on Teespring at the Jungle Podcast store.
Cool, man. Well, why don't we get into it? You go some news and notes for us?
Yeah. So, I didn't do a whole lot of digging on the news, to be honest. There's not a whole lot going on right now outside of some controversies with contracts and this and that. College football, I guess here's one. College football, like the Big Ten, the Pac-12, said we're not doing anything out of conference. Then you've got the SEC guys. We talked about this a little bit last week. Coach Ed Orgeron down at LSU saying the people need football. We need football. The country needs it. So he's on board. I think the fact that we're keeping it within the Big Ten, for instance, that helps a lot, because that way everyone's on the same page with scheduling.
Yeah.
And if everyone needs to not play a week, you can do it easily that way, because the league is in control versus the NCAA.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird season. I don't think it's going to be a normal football season, but I do think there will be football. I don't know how much, but I think we'll see it.
I think there will be football. I'm definitely with Coach O down there in LSU. I think we do need football right now. I think we need a lot of sports back on TV. I think it's interesting, looking at that, and I think we talked about a little bit how the conferences they're going to front load their schedule, because I think that they know that we might get 3, 4, 5 games in, and they might cancel the rest of the season. Yeah. So they're going to, they're getting their big games up front, which I think, hey, that's great. But yeah, that's I think there will be football. It's just going to be different. My big news and notes was really something that's been big this week is all the Madden rankings are coming out.
Yeah, that's
for the video games. There have definitely been some interesting ones. I've seen the big thing they do is the 99 club, right? If you're 99 overall. Pat Mahomes was 99 overall. Aaron Donald. I just saw that Stephon Gilmore became 99 overall as well. And then Christian McCaffrey is a 99 overall. But the biggest one that I kind of had a problem with is Deshaun Watson is an 86 overall behind Matt Ryan. He was ranked 8th or 9th in the NFL as quarterback. That's absurd.
I don't play Madden
I don't either.
Madden all the time. I think they've gotten a little bit tougher with their grading of some of these guys.
But what did Deshaun Watson do? People were talking about him as a possible MVP last year.
Yeah, I love Deshaun Watson. I don't know, but why are either of them that low? They seem like they should be a 90. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, at least a 90. They're at least if you were giving them a report card for them as quarterbacks, they're getting A's.
Mark Brunell was an 86, an 86.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Cordell Stewart was an 85, 86.
Yeah. And hey, look, I love Brunell. I love Cordell Stewart, but they're not Matt Ryan and they're not Deshaun Watson. So But yeah, so that was it for me for news and notes. I think it's interesting. I'm not a big gamer, but look, there's not sports on, so it's something to talk about, and they've been talking about it all week with Madden rankings, and Adam Schefter keeps tweeting them out and putting them on Instagram. So it's interesting, something cool to watch. But I got a good kudos if you want me to kind of transition there and lead off there.
Sure, fire it off.
Yeah, so my kudos, I'm not sure if you saw this. There's a kid named Bridger Walker, 6-year-old.
Wait, what's his first name?
Bridger.
Weird.
Bridger Walker. He's a 6-year-old. He got 90 stitches this week because he saved his little sister from a dog that was attacking him. And he said afterwards, if someone had to die, I thought it should be me. As a that's a badass
attitude for a 6-year-old.
He's tougher. He's way tougher than me and I've ever been. Let's put it like he's tougher than I think probably 99% of the people on the planet. Yeah. So my kudos goes to Bridger Walker, hard as nails kid. Kudos to him. The cool thing that happened with that. So he's getting a ton of people reaching out to him. Like I think the cast, like the Avengers, reached out to him and all this type of stuff, saying he's a superhero, which he is. But what was really cool is WBC Boxing named him an honorary world champ. That's pretty cool. So my kudos for the week goes to Bridger Walker. Big kudos to you, buddy. I'm sure we're going to see big things from him at some point in time in the future. I mean, the kid's just hard as nails. It's awesome.
True story. I used to cry when I got out in T-ball. Probably about that kid's age. I couldn't handle the emotional stress of getting out in a game. Yeah. I would cry and run off the field. That kid's fighting for his sister's life. Yeah. With the mental wherewithal where it's going to be somebody. It's going to be me.
It's going to be me.
That kid's going to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, and then he grabs her hand after and gets the dog away, and then he runs her away. He's got check out the picture. He's got a scar that's going to be some badass scar on his face. I mean, what a beast. Bridger Walker, big kudos to you, buddy.
That is badass.
Yeah.
It's good. My kudos, so you said, I have to correct you. You said there were no sports going right now. And that is true for most sports. I was watching last night, though, the Ultimate Frisbee, they call it the Ultimate Disc Championship aired last night.
Okay.
It was between Richmond, Virginia, and New York or something like that, Long Island. None of them are major cities. They're just a bunch of weirdos out in suburbs in these teams. But yeah, they were playing for the ship. So my kudos of the week went to the ultimate, the disc, whatever ultimate. They don't call it Ultimate Frisbee. I don't know why.
Hey, dude, I used to love playing Ultimate Frisbee growing up.
For sure, yeah.
It was always pretty fun. Yeah.
But those guys aren't. They're getting out there, getting dirty.
Yeah. I mean, it's so what are they doing every time they throw a frisbee, or do they have to sanitize it every time they catch it? Are they wearing gloves, or what's going on with that?
Those guys they're just savages. They don't care. They just throw and run, baby.
Good. Yeah. Well, good for them. I like that. That is good kudos. So yeah, you're right. So there are some sports going on. I know, but but we can't wait for the rest of them to come back. So there you go. There's our kudos of the week.
What's that? Baseball next Friday. I can't wait.
Baseball next Friday. That's going to be great. The NBA coming back soon, hopefully. So apparently, people are getting called out for leaving the bubble, and there's a hot
Instagram girls to come to their bubble.
Yeah,
they're getting called out for it by the Instagram girls.
It's what'd you think was going to happen? Come on, But all right, hey, look, yeah. So sports are going to. I think they're going to come back. Hopefully sooner than people think. But There you go. There's our kudos of the week, Sam. I like it. I think those were two good ones.
So for the list piece this week, we've been doing a lot of player rankings, and we wanted to kind of switch it up. We've been doing a lot of those, and not to say that we won't do more of those, but just to get some variance in our content that we're providing you guys with. So what we're doing this week is we're doing our top 10. I don't know how you want to call it, the best Bengals of the past 20 years.
I was thinking for the top 10 Bengals in the last 20 years when they were a Bengal.
Right.
When they were a Bengal. Yeah, because that changes things. But that's kind of what I thought of. Hopefully we got Bengal season coming up, and we're both big fans. So top 10 Bengals from 2020.
Yeah, and a lot of it is do you want the 2005 flavor or the 2015 flavor? Because those were really the two really good teams we've seen in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see how they split between the two, and it was fun to go back and just look at some of the names. I hope Kevin Case Maharn's not actually on your list. But I was like, Delta O'Neal. What happened to Delta? I forgot he made the Pro Bowl in 2004. Or Torrey James made the Pro Bowl in 2006, the cornerback.
Yeah.
It's just funny to go through and it kind of clicks with some of these guys.
It does.
But interested to see who's on your list.
I'm really excited to see your list too. It was an interesting one to put on. Like there are guys that you think about. Oh damn, that guy was a really good Bengal. You know what I mean? And I think a couple of them are going to surprise you. But what do you think? You want me to start off? Or you want to start it off?
I'll start it off. One guy who we talked a lot about in our top 10 defensive end rankings, still on the Bengals. I have top 10 or starting at 10, Carlos Dunlap.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about him a lot. Look, he's on my list. He's my number 9. So we're thinking pretty similar there.
3 Pro Bowls, led the league in batted balls since he entered the league. Doesn't get enough recognition, but I mean, he's a Pro Bowl caliber year in and year out defensive end for us. He's been around for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was that?
We talked a lot about him in other episodes, but
yeah. What was that list? I think you might have sent it to me. I mean, I think he's top 4 in the league for the past 10 years in quarterback hits or something, or past 5 years or something like that.
Batted balls.
I know, but also I think QB hits or QB pressures.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
That one. He was top 4, and I think it's basically QB hits. Just get to the quarterback. It's like J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, Carlos Dunlap, and then someone else.
Exactly. I mean, so he's a guy who's been one of the staples of the Bengals defenses, and I think why he has to be on this list is just how long he's been doing it. So yeah, he was my number 9. So I like him at your number 10. My number 10 was Rudy Johnson.
I love that.
And,
I almost wore the jersey for the episode.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you? So I like Rudy Johnson a lot. I think people forget that he started his first 2-3 years behind Corey Dillon. So he got shadowed, obviously in Corey Dillon's shadow for a while. But when he took over the role, what was it? He set the Bengals record for single season rushing, I think twice. I think broke his own record once. He had some. He had some really good years. He also just carried the ball a ton. He was the staple of the offense. And I mean, you remember, I read one article where it's you remember just the Rudy, those chants during Bengals games.
Best chants I've ever heard at a Bengals game after New Day, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. So Rudy Johnson, he comes in at my number 10. I just think that obviously 9 players I have ahead of him, but I think he very much deserves to be in the top 10.
I love that. And yeah, he didn't, because I think part of the love affair with him was the fact that Corey Dillon had just left in such a sour way,
right?
Throwing his stuff into his pads into the stadium, saying he's never coming back here. So you wanted somebody to step in and take his place.
Yep.
Rudy did that and did it tenfold.
Yeah, he did it so well, and he replaced big shoes. Corey Dillon was a great running back, So there you go.
So number 9 for me, I have Carson Palmer, the only quarterback on my list.
Really? How do you? What?
Andy Dalton's never really made a Pro Bowl. He's always somebody gets hurt and they just throw him in there.
Andy Dalton's all right, we'll talk about it later.
Carson Palmer's the best quarterback to play for the Bengals in the past 20 years.
He didn't reach the ceiling. He didn't reach the ceiling.
First off, he was first overall pick in 2003, right?
Yeah.
And the Bengals hadn't made the playoffs in 12 years. He took them from literally the garbage and made them a contender, was in the discussions. I know the chemo Van Olhoffen hit kind of derailed things, and I know he left in a bad way too. Yeah. But it took him 8 years to get fed up, and I think in those 8 years, he truly was trying to, everything he could to succeed. I think health, put some issues in the way. I don't think the passing of Chris Henry helped. Just kind of taking away one of his weapons. Just looking at some of the guys on that offense, Carson Palmer is special, and if he hadn't been hurt, I think it'd been a different, maybe a different outcome. Because I think we would have won that playoff game, and there's a lot of what ifs throughout Bengals history. That's part of the part of being a fandom, part of the fandom. But
look,
I think he deserved the top 10 now. Give him number 9.
He's on my list. He's high, but I also have another quarterback. But we'll talk about that too. My number 9 was Carlos Dunlap. We talked about him. So I'll go ahead and go to my number 8 then. My number 8 was Leon Hall. And Leon Hall, I mean, he's probably the best corner that the Bengals have had in the past 20 years. Well, I think he is the best corner without a doubt in the past 20 years. It was sad when he left. I thought he was really, really good, fun to watch. We just haven't had a Leon Hall in the defensive backfield for quite some time. I think we did some really good things this past season, obviously to shore up more of our defensive backs. But Leon Hall, looking back at it, I just remembered him as being so much more dangerous than any guy we've had in 20 years.
So he's my number 7.
Okay.
And here's the thing about Leon Hall. People so we had him, and then I think so we drafted him maybe like 05, 04.
Yeah.
And then we had Jonathan Joseph. Those two, Jonathan Joseph is still playing today. And, if you're going to rank the top 10 cornerbacks to play, I think he'd probably be the number 2 on the Bengals list.
Yeah, you just got to be.
But when Leon Hall, because people forget, he tore his Achilles, I think, twice. And that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
Before that occurred, he was regarded as one of the elite corners. He was first team All-Pro as a corner.
Who, Leon Hall?
Pretty sure.
I don't know. Yeah, he might have been.
One year, I think he awesome.
I think he would deserve to be. I mean, they started going. You can obviously talk about Carson Palmer when they started going to the playoffs, but when they had Leon Hall and when they had Jonathan Joseph, that's when they turned into an even better football team.
Okay, second team All-Pro.
There you go. Still
corrected, but
still
that means there were 2 guys ahead of him in the league.
Yeah.
He was top 4. We haven't had someone else like that, and I could put him higher if he hadn't been hurt, but he got hurt, and that's part of it.
Well, there you go. So he's your 7. He's my 8. Who's your 8?
Justin Smith. We talked about him last time. I had him higher than Carlos Dunlap then, and I have him higher than Carlos Dunlap now.
Look, I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll let you talk about him, but then I'll give my argument as to why he's not on my list.
He came in you have to the Bengals are still the Bengals, but the Bungles of the early 2000s were in a truly just desperate time for Bengal fandom, and he was another one that came in just like Carson Palmer and just left his stamp. He immediately changed with his presence and his playing ability. It changed the attitude a little bit.
It did.
And he's one of those important building players. I have him 8th on my list. I'm not saying the guy belongs if we had a Ring of Honor, maybe he would. I know that's something they talk about if we're going to have a Bengals Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
I'd put him in there. I think I'd put all 10 of these guys in there.
Yeah.
It's just he didn't get all the accolades. A lot of that happened after he left, but he was a good, solid player. I think he was the 8th best Bengal the past 20 years.
I mean, I love Justin Smith. I didn't put him on my list. I thought about it. It was tough for me to leave him off. He was a better pro when he left the Bengals. And now a little bit of that is because of the system that he went to. He went to the Niners. But I will 100% agree with you that he was a staple. He was just a leader on the team. So he was a very bad dude. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. I just think he became much better when he left the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, he got the accolades more for sure.
Yeah.
But
so he's your 8. You said your 7's Leon Hall. I'll go ahead and give you my 7. My 7 is Andy Dalton.
Ooh, Andy.
He's the winningest quarterback the Bengals have ever had.
Ugh.
He has a better passer rating than Carson Palmer.
Okay.
He did go to the playoffs several times. I know he never won it, but I just don't think you can discount. Here's the thing. Guess what? All these other guys ahead of him never won a playoff game either. And
sadly true.
Yeah. and Andy Dalton was the quarterback of the team that went there. He put up good numbers before he got hurt. And what was it, 2015? The people were talking about him being the MVP of the league. So I have him at 7, which I have Carson Palmer at 6. So I might as well go ahead and tell you that. So I do agree with you that I think Carson Palmer is a better quarterback, even though if you look at stats, Andy Dalton's are better. But there you go. Dalton, I think, deserves to be in the top 10. He's my 7, and my 6 is Carson.
So, I mean, I don't have Andy. I don't really like Andy. I don't miss Andy. I have no emotional attachment to Andy whatsoever.
I don't miss Andy.
I can't wait. I'm so glad that we have Joe Burrow.
Me too.
Just this whole new chapter. Because those Andy Dalton years, he he just never did anything that good to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
He did like legit like 2 of his 3 Pro Bowls. It was because another guy got injured or just like didn't want to play like a week beforehand. Yeah. Or they went to the Super Bowl. They're like, hey, we need somebody. Andy Dalton had a decent year.
Yeah.
So my 6th was the 2nd round pick in 2005. Still a highly regarded left tackle out in LA, Andrew Whitworth. Big Whit.
Yeah, he's on my list. He's higher, but yeah, go ahead and talk about him. I love Whitworth.
I mean, it's kind of in the Justin Smith area. So like he was 3-time All-Pro with the Bengals. I think like 14, 15, 16, or 17, one in there. Then he leaves, and then he gets all the recognition as like this first-team All-Pro, elite level offensive tackle. But he truly was the guy who he made all those offenses go that we just talked about with Andy Dalton. He was just a big piece of those teams, and here's a loyal Bengal. Like the only reason he's not with us is because we let him go. He would have kept playing; he'd still be here. Unfortunately enough for us, we didn't want to pay him. We thought he was over the hill. Now he's first team All-Pro every year.
He's not. He's so good. I mean, I love Andrew Whitworth. I remember when he came out at LSU. He's just like this big monster, and I guess I can go ahead and tell you he's my number 5. So I've already given you my 6 and my 7. So I like where he's at there with you too. I remember when he came out of LSU, he was just this big. It's crazy because he doesn't have like this like super scary looking build besides just being a huge man. But he had these long, skinny arms, the skinny legs. You know what I mean? But dude, that guy's gone up against the best defensive ends and won. And I think he's 100% one of the best Bengals of all time. And like I said, he's number 5 on my list in the past 20 years.
I remember reading, like, I remember sitting at the computer in my parents' house. Like, I remember what the time of day it was and everything, reading the draft recap. I think I'd just gotten home from high school. Yeah. And I think the way they described him, I bet we can find this, and I guarantee it says this in there somewhere. It says he's so large that when he walks through a door, he blocks out the door frame. That's the way to describe him.
Well, he had the massive, like, tall shoulders, right? But then he's got those like long thin arms. Those long thin legs. But man does he move well. He's also just a true leader. I was so sad to see him leave, and good for the Rams to realize that he's got so much more potential and so much more still to play.
Yeah, we just don't want to pay him. It's just,
I know.
Like, it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. So stupid.
Well, he's your 5.
So he was your 6?
Yeah.
Okay, so who's your 5?
Corey Dillon, the greatest Bengals running back of the past 20 years, maybe of all time, maybe than in Ickey Woods back in the day. Like, Corey Dillon, he was our whole offense, especially like 2000, 2001, 2002, and even into, I think he one year did he win the Super Bowl with the Patriots? I know that's beyond us, but
like 3.
The point is, like, the guy was a legit, just all-around back. Back when they didn't have to catch the ball as much, he was big. He had like a 270-yard game. He was like the jersey to buy. It was either, who do you want, like Kitna or Corey Dillon? Okay, I'll take the Corey Dillon. That was before all the receivers were popping off. I don't know. Like, he left in a bad way. 5th best Bengal the past 20 years.
Hey, look, I don't have him on my list, and I know you're going to hate that. Just because, and I think it's just because I thought about him so much more as a late 90s guy. But then when you do look at it, he did have 4 years in 2020. All these other guys on the list, excuse me, had more years with the Bengals, which is what I looked at it more.
Right.
But I will 100% agree with you. His 4 years from 2000 till what is 03, I guess, or 2002.
3 or 4.
He was the man.
Last year it was in 2004, and I think Rudy started getting the ball a little bit more. And I don't know why that. Maybe there's probably some internal.
Yeah. I love Corey Dillon. I think you're probably right. He probably is the best running back the Bengals have had. I just looked at it in the past 20 years of him only putting in 4 years of work, and that's probably on me to think about him. I guess that's a 5th of the 2 decades. So I guess that works. So I like that. Look, he's your number 5. I like that. My number 5 was Andrew Whitworth. I could probably take Andy Dalton out and put Corey Dillon there, and people would be happier about that. I'd probably be happier about it too. But I'll stick to my list. I'll stick to it. My number 5 was Whitworth. Yours was Corey Dillon. Who's your 4?
AJ Green. AJ
Okay.
Green, eggs and ham.
Okay.
I'm assuming he's higher on your list.
Yes.
I mean, he's about to break every receiving record in the Bengals franchise history this next year, if we have a year.
Yeah.
You could say he's the greatest Bengals receiver ever. But when I did some deeper dives, I thought, you know what? 4. He's the 4th best.
Well, I know what wide receiver you're gonna have ahead of him, which is fine. My number 4 was Geno Atkins. Yeah. Yes. I think the 3 guys ahead of him deserve to be up there. And look, I think Geno could actually probably be moved up to number 2, but he's such a good defensive tackle. He's one of the best in the NFL. To be number 4 on a team over the past 20 years, we look at offense and defense, is not slighting a guy, especially with the 3 guys that I'm putting ahead of him, and the guys that are behind him. Geno's one of the best. Has always been one of the best since he came in the league. So I'm sure he's obviously higher for you. But, he's my number 4.
He is higher for me. I'll explain why in a little bit.
All right. So then who's your 3?
You want me to go 3?
You want me to give my 3 first?
Give me your 3.
My 3 is Chad Johnson.
Same here.
Okay.
I've got him at 3. Here's why. So I have AJ at 4, and I put Chad Johnson at 3.
Yes.
And I was like, Chad's got all the numbers. Chad's got this and that. Here's what AJ has all the numbers. AJ has all the accolades. Here's the difference. So AJ Green has made 3 Pro Bowls, I think. 3, maybe 4. I think he's made 4.
AJ Green's made 7 Pro Bowls.
So, am I messing something up? One.
AJ Green's he's made 7 Pro Bowls, and he's been 3 times second team All Pro. That's the difference. Chad was 3-time first team All Pro.
First team. That was my argument. Thank you for spelling it out for me better. So that's why. It's like Chad at his peak. Chad was regarded as the best. AJ's never been regarded as the best. Chad was the best on first team All Pro 3 times.
I get
never done it once.
I get that, but I will still argue that I think as an overall wide receiver, AJ Green is a better wide receiver than Chad Johnson.
And I may tend to agree, but at their peak, Chad was better. Chad's 6-time Pro Bowl, AJ's 7.
Yes.
AJ's obviously going to get more. Like, he's not done yet. But I don't know. That matters to me, man. Like, it matters to me if the coaches and players select you as one of the best at your position or not. Chad did it 3 times. Like, that is
I agree with you. I think that, look, he's got more first team All Pros than Geno does. Yeah. You know what I mean? So obviously he's ahead of him for me than Geno. I love Chad Johnson. Love him. It was very hard for me, and I knew you were going to put him over AJ.
Of course.
Obviously. It was very hard for me to do that. When I look at it, if I was building a team over the past 20 years on the Bengals and I wanted one of those guys at my wide receiver, I think I would usually tend to go towards AJ Green.
I would.
Now, that's hard to say. You're right. Chad Johnson, when he was doing it in his prime, he was the best. I do also think that AJ's had some competition wide receiver wise that has been just as good as Chad's, if not better. But then I guess you can make the argument the other way.
That's Marvin Harrison and T.O. and Randy Moss.
That's a whole other argument. So yeah, I mean that's a tough one. We've kind of talked about that. So look, my 2 and 3 I think are interchangeable. Chad Johnson was number 3 for me. My number 2 was AJ Green.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is definitely your number 1. It's Big Willie Anderson.
Yep.
Big Willie Anderson, and I had him as my number 1. And then I thought Geno Atkins is my number 1. So Big Willie, I guess I'll let you kind of fill in on why tell us why he's your number 1 first, and I'll tell you why Geno is my number 1. Because I put little arrows on my paper switching them.
So going with the argument that you just used for Chad as the best wide receiver, I'm going to use for Willie Anderson.
Okay.
Willie Anderson, when he played, was the best tackle in the game.
Right.
Geno's not the best defense tackle in the game. So that would be an argument that you could say Willie Anderson's had more first-team All-Pros. Now, Geno's had more Pro Bowls, but I always say that Pro Bowls are always popularity contests anyways.
Yeah.
I think Willie's not in the Hall of Fame yet. I think he should be and hopefully will be. Geno probably will be voted before him, and I think that Geno, at the end of his career, maybe I would switch that and he would be one. Just as kind of he could leap up, I think, Chad Johnson and A.J. Green for sure. I love Geno Atkins, so I like your pick with him there, number one. But I just looked at it and I was like, big Willie Anderson. There was no one better.
And so here's the difference. So and this is why I switched him, because I put him on top for the same reason. And then I looked, and Geno has literally made the Pro Bowl every year he's been in the league except for 2.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how many he has. Like 1, 2,
He's got
3, 4,
he's
5, 6, 7, 8.
8.
He's 8. Willie has 4.
4, but 3 first-team All-Pros.
That's
what matters.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's why Gino's not done. Like, I just think the consistency that Geno Atkins has shown.
Yeah.
And like, what if he was on the LA Rams instead? You know how much more attention he would get in Aaron Donald's position?
Yeah,
how much less attention would Aaron Donald get if he was in Geno Atkins' position? Because they're very similar players.
I agree with you.
Down to it.
I agree with you. And I think when Geno's done, I think he would probably end up moving at number 1 on the list. I love him. I love that you have him at number 1. The top 4 for me are almost where it's like you could make a case for any of those guys to be number 1. I think we had the same top 4, except who was your 4?
So I have AJ at 4, Chad at 3, 2 is Big Willie, and then number 1 is Geno.
Yeah. So we have the same top 4, just a little bit of a different order. So I think those top 4, you could look at them as 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D.
Yeah.
You know, loved all those guys. Big Willie. I wish Willie's Sports Bar was still open down here in Cincinnati, but it closed down a while ago.
He had a Sports Bar.
He had one right off 75. Right when you got there. Willie's Sports Bar.
Good for him. He's invested in some. I think it's called Fat Burger.
I think you're right. Like I think he's probably got a couple.
He lives in Atlanta. He still does. If you follow him on Twitter, he's a great follow. He still critiques like offensive tackle. He's like Big Willie Anderson's like offensive line camp. He's still really a lot.
Really.
So I want to give a shout out to a couple other names. The number 1 name that he must have been a lot better in my head as a kid than he turned out to be when I looked at all his numbers. Rich Bram, the old center. I gave some slight consideration to Rich Bram. I gave a little bit of consideration to Deltha O'Neal. The one name that I did have on my list as high as 8 at one point, and then I had to scratch it off, was Pac-Man Jones. Pac-Man, like, all right, he's a difference maker, man. Like, I know I told you that Leon Hall and Jonathan Joseph probably could have been in the consideration too.
Yeah.
But Pac-Man, at the same time, like he made a mess up into the 2015 playoffs, but he's made a Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And he's been an impact player too.
Look,
Eric Steinbach.
A couple names
Bobby
that
Williams.
I was just going to say Bobby Williams. Yeah, Hushmanzada could be mentioned. I think Bobby could be mentioned. I also think that, look, D'Amato Pekka was such a good guy in the middle of the defensive line. And then also, people forget about probably the best linebacker that the Bengals have had in the last 20 years is Brian Simmons.
Brian Simmons, I was about to say something. I was about to say Odell Thurman. But 1 year.
Brian Simmons.
Yeah. Brian Simmons, was it Takeo Spikes?
Spikes?
Elsewhere.
Yep. Brian Simmons was a really, really good linebacker.
Yeah, I'm looking at that 2005 team is Robert Gathers.
Yeah.
There's so many names.
Yeah.
And
it was a good team.
Dude, Kelly Washington, the number 4, and he had that like stupid ass dance he would always do. It was like a river dance with like a peacock, something going on.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
That was a fun team, man. But that was good. Well, look, that was a fun list. I think a little bit of that turns into a favorites list, but I also thought of it. I think that's a really good best of too. You know? Yeah. So Send me that. I'm gonna get these. I'll get it posted. Our last polls are just ending, so I'm still waiting to post the last poll from our last podcast because the other ones are just ending. I didn't want them to get bogged down there. But right now, I do want to mention the poll of is competitive eating a sport or not? Because right now, no is leading. So I think that poll either ends today or tomorrow, and then I'm going to post the what did we do last week? The most exciting players and the top 10 Bengals. Those are going to be posted. We appreciate the votes. We appreciate the views. We appreciate the listens.
And we appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jeff.
All
right, that wraps it up. That's episode 23. We'll be back. I don't know when it'll be this weekend or sometime next week, early in the week. Yep. Episode 24. Maybe have a special guest. You'll have to find out. That's pretty much all I got, Jeff.
That's what I got, buddy. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, you too, man. See ya.